Nichole. Good morning.
Hi, Laura.
I'm so glad you're here this morning. And I know we've been already chatting a little bit, but um, typically I've been hopping right in, but I just want to say to people listening a little bit about how we met, because it's been almost 2 years ago. And I had kind of been asking around, being kind of new to Nashville, when I was planning a retreat, and I said, who do you recommend for meals for a chef? And I got a lot of recommendations, and I landed on you. And I remember reading your bio, and I think the first words I even read were reflective or deep listening session. And I was fascinated and immediately intrigued by that, because that's a skill not many people have. And it's a skill that not many people, I think, bring out that way and say, this is what it is, right? And I was just intrigued. And I remember meeting you, and then, of course, tasting your meals and understanding where they came from. And it was more than just knowing how to make beautiful meals. It was just coming from you. And wow, what a gift you have. And what a gift every woman experienced at that retreat in January of 2020, with you nurturing us and preparing the meals for us. And then the world shutting down, I think 5 weeks later. I just got the chills. And since then, I have gotten to know you even deeper as a human with multifaceted gifts in this world. And I've gotten to know myself deeper because of knowing you. And so I'm just so glad you're here. And I'm so excited to have you at our next retreat in October, Unleashing Joy. And, everything from the joy elixirs that you're preparing for us to drink in the afternoons, to the beautiful meals that you're preparing with love. But also just sharing a little bit that you were in my Soul Sanctuary group program last year as a participant, but also holding energetic space for me and sharing your gifts in human design, and really sharing that with the group, which was so deeply valuable for each woman. So I can't wait to hear today about your experience with joy and to share you, because I think you're just an incredible soul. So let's just kick it off with joy. And I like to always define things first, and would love to know, just when you hear the word joy or think about joy, how would you define it? How do you feel? What does it mean to you to be in your joy?
So, joy for me it's very much a feeling. And I guess outside of the feeling, I'm not sure how I would articulate as maybe a definition. But when I feel joy, I'm at the dinner table with my family and watching them, talk and have a good time. And I just have this feeling of just deep, deep gratefulness. There's a connection of nourishment there as well. I feel really nourished in those experiences. So I guess that is what joy is for me. It is that feeling. And I always connect this almost overwhelming feeling of gratefulness with joy. I can, even right now, I have that kind of experience of goosebumps, and it's just this whole body feeling for me.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love that. First of all, the connection already I'm seeing, and I'm sure you already see it, but the connection that joy is connected to nourishment. So much for you, and no wonder. And I often say to my clients, what brings you joy is also going to show you your next step, your gifts, what you're here to share. And you share nourishment in so many ways, through human design and nourishing yourself, specifically how you will take in nourishment, how you need to nourish as a specific design, but also the actual creating of that nourishment for the body. So beautiful that those connect for you and joy and the gratitude
Mhm.
of experiencing that experience.
Right. It definitely is a full experience. And, sometimes it's even a feeling of, or sometimes it's an experience of being brought to tears. There is just, I have so much gratefulness for things and people and, just everything around me. I guess gratefulness is a default for me.
Mhm.
Um, so is love. So, when those two are combined, I guess that would be joy for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hmm.
love that so much. Beautiful. So, my next question is, what do you feel blocks you from being in that energy of the gratefulness that you describe and that nourishment? What is something that comes in that stops you or blocks you from that?
That was it's such an easy answer for me.
Mhm.
What are past mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, as soon as I get into that space, I'm out of flow as I see it. I'm not solution oriented anymore. Um, it's Everything changes when I get into that space. I almost feel it and even as I move my hand, I almost feel it as a frenetic energy, and there aren't really answers there. Um, so I do know when I'm starting to focus on past, especially as a mom,
Mhm.
it's so easy as a mother my experience at least has been that it's so easy to recognize the mistakes or shortcomings that I might feel that I've had, um, and it doesn't serve the present.
Right.
I know that those things can inform how I make changes in my life, um, or how I decide to move forward. But when I'm actually stuck in them, I'm not in joy. And interestingly, because my default tends to be gratefulness, when I get into those spaces, it usually isn't incredibly challenging to move to seeing what I'm grateful for and start to feel that in my body. But sometimes I can stay there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Self compassion has been, I feel like that has been a path, a journey for me, is being able to direct the same compassion that I would direct towards you or towards other people that I know, directing that towards myself. Um, and when I do that, then I can get back into that flow and the space to be able to feel the gratefulness and love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess so that's my flip side is the self-compassion piece. The more that I um, direct it inwards, the more easily I get into that space of gratefulness. Um, and I get a little bit hesitant around talking about gratefulness in that way because I know that sometimes gratefulness can almost feel to some people, moving into that space can almost feel like a form of bypassing some of the things that we do need to experience.
Mhm.
So I'm also aware of that as well personally. And when I talk to other people and, help them find their place of nourishment or gratefulness, joy, as you put it, whatever that looks like for them, I'm also very aware of the fact that we do still need to experience those emotions because if we're suppressing them or just bypassing them, boy, we are not helping ourselves or people around us.
No. Yes. And I have to pull out what you said about comparing, or not even, you didn't use the word comparing. You just said kind of being stuck in past mistakes, like thinking
Mhm.
about, well, how did I screw up that, back in 10 years ago with my kids, or, you know,
Right.
it just sucks you back. Woo, it sucks you out of your joy. I mean, and it sucks you down into self-judgment real fast,
Hmm.
right? And you
Absolutely.
described it as kind of that frenetic energy. And I so can feel that when you describe that. Um, and the piece about we can choose to get back into gratitude as our pathway back into joy, and not bypass. I just this weekend was practicing that, because I think I told you
Mhm.
before, I was moving through some feelings of that, like, why didn't I do that yet, or why didn't I move forward on something that I knew, with just a little bit of self-judgment. And
Mhm.
I think what you said is important to really reiterate, is that we have to feel that. We have to let ourselves sit in that for a minute, or however long we need to recognize, why is that activating me? What's going on here? And then once we've kind of been with that and dialogued with that and had a conversation with a friend about it, or whatever we need to do,
Mhm.
then we can choose to then step back into that gratitude. And by doing
Mhm.
it that way, we're not bypassing anything, but we're choosing not to stay in that energy of, oh my God, what mistakes did I make? Oh my God. It's almost like whoosh. You feel that whoosh of like shame, or like, like I don't know how to even just, that freneticness, untethered for a second from your joy.
Right.
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 So I think it's important, and I'm glad you shared that, because I feel like so many of us can resonate with that. And the more we talk about it, the more we feel less shame about feeling that way or
Mhm.
doing it. Right.
Mhm.
Specifically too, I just really quick want to say, I have felt that way about my body, and I have had many clients feel that way about their body, that they compare or think about past mistakes they've made with their body to get to where they are now. And I think it's such a good practice to go, okay, well, what am I believing about that? What am I believing about my body? And then I think that how can I get back into my body today, and look to,
Mhm.
where do I want to be with my body today and tomorrow and the next day, not 10 years ago. So I think I just want to put that out there, because I think our bodies are often where we also do that. And it's based on old stuff that we
Right.
get out of.
I definitely have my own, I guess I would refer to them as body image issues, that excuse me, I have done personal work on. And that again, for me, that's an ever evolving journey.
Mhm.
Um, and more recently, I'm feeling my age in a different way. Excuse me. And my body is softer in ways, that maybe she wasn't before. Um, and so having a different experience body wise, even that's a great point, because there's a lot of compassion that I am ever learning to direct my way.
Mhm.
And just considering, we have two daughters. I carried them in my body. I was home for them. So even just that is its own reminder that yes, my body does change. I change, and I'm going to, and it's just part of life.
Yeah.
Um, but when I was younger, I did deal with disordered eating. I did have an eating disorder for about 7 years. So that's part of my story, and it's part of what informs, some of the choices that I make now.
Mhm.
So that makes a lot of sense too. I'm glad you made that point.
Yeah, and even as you were speaking, you said something that made me think, oh, isn't that interesting that we expect our lives to change as we grow
Mhm.
and get older and move into the next stages of life. We just kind of know and expect that's going to change, but yet
Mhm.
we don't want our bodies to change. Like, we expect, or we hold this ideal of, nope, your body you can't change. You're supposed to stay the same.
Mhm.
The rest of me can change. So isn't that kind of a disembodied way of living our lives? And if we were to look at it that way, it's like, whoa, I'm disembodied. I'm cutting myself off from my body. Now I can choose to get back in my body. And what does that look like? And how do I do that? And that's a whole nother call. But but yeah. So
And just to kind of touch just slightly more with what you were saying, a lot of times we even welcome the change. We welcome the changes that we know we're going to experience. Some maybe more than others. But that body piece, right? That, kind of the thinking that we know it's going to change, but how we, go along with the change, I guess,
yeah.
is where it can count now. And maybe being able to welcome that just as much as we welcome a promotion, or
Right.
how we're moving forward in life.
Yeah, or and even the fact of thought of like I always get so many cool ahas when I'm talking to you. But of course. But like
Likewise.
even if we were like thinking about our kids, like, we don't nurture our 16-year-olds or our 24-year-olds the way that we nurtured them when they were 2 or 1, or we feed them differently, we help them move differently. So it's the same with us. It's like each year is a new journey with our body,
Hmm.
and it doesn't necessarily look like any other year. And it can look like whatever we want it to look like, but there's no judgment in that change.
Right.
So, and I think it's important to just bring it out because I don't think I've ever had a client, and I'm not a body image coach,
Hmm.
but I don't think I've ever had a client that was a woman not need to look at her relationship with her body in order to allow herself to be fully who she is in the world and in her
Hmm.
gifts. So it's almost like it's like a given. Like we're going to go there at some point. At least in the work that I do, and maybe it's because I've done a lot of deep work around my body. I'm probably attracting those clients in that also need to do that work. So, um yeah, thank you for going down that path with me on that, because it felt important to say. Um
Hmm.
so So back to joy, when you are in your joy, when you are in that sitting around that table and you are in your gratitude and you are in that place of that full body feeling of gratefulness in your body. Um, what changes for you? Or what does that allow you to do or manifest in your life or in your business or in your family when you are in that energy?
So part of that actually connects to, if we're talking about business as part of the conversation, part of that really connects to human design for me. Um, Knowing more, I love going deep. I love going deep, period, with myself, with other people, right? Yes, just anyone. Um, the more that I understand about how I work and how I move through the world, um, the more that I guess that takes some pressure off me. Um, and so with that piece, when I am more, as I see it in flow, and I think that flow and joy are kind of the same thing. I'm talking about the same thing here. Um, when I'm in that space, because I'm opening up and I am directing compassion towards myself, that allows, it opens me to be able to have different conversations with people. Um, I also, could we say, energetically, I'm different a little bit when I'm coming from that place of, sometimes I even see it as being in a pause, like really just taking everything in. When I'm in that space, the way I hold space for other people is different. The way I feel when I cook food that nourishes other people or myself, it's different. It feels different. Um, and I can even tell when people eat the food. If I'm rushed and trying to get things done quickly and there's a lot of pressure there, there's a different feeling at the table. When I have when I've been able to move in a way that some people some people say they almost feel like there's love infused into my food. when I move in that way, there's a different experience for the person consuming the food. So it is definitely different when I'm in that flow space or in the joy space. It's a mix of the I keep thinking the end user experience.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound quite right for this, but it's different for them, and
Hmm.
I'm able to come from a place that is maybe more open,
Hmm.
and supportive. I guess I would say even for my family,
Yeah.
because when I'm in that space of not directing so much of that judgment towards myself, but instead that compassion, when they ask me questions or they come to me with an issue or we're having dinner, whatever it is, I come from a different place and support from a different place. Did that
Absolutely.
answer your question?
Absolutely. It really is.
Okay.
This description of how I took it in was energy is everything. And
Hmm.
not only is it affecting your energy, because when you are in the energy of joy, you're more open, you're more able to infuse that into your food that you're creating, into the
Hmm.
experience. And not only that, the people experiencing what you're giving and creating, it's creating a ripple effect into their lives as they
Hmm.
receive it. And I think
Hmm.
that you specifically do that with of course human design readings and through the food that you prepare. But we can take that process and bring it into anything that we do in life. And I
Right.
just want to say, that's not about always being in your joy and having to always be in that place to do anything, because there's times when we have to like compartmentalize for a second and do what needs to be done in the moment, even if we're having that hard self-judgment moment.
Right. Hmm.
But there are times where, where if I'm having a day of self-judgment or I'm walking through something, I will pause and I'll say, you know what, this is not a time to be writing an email to my community. This is not a time to be, you know, uh, whatever it is that I think I need to do next, because the energy behind that, I want it to be one of love and of openness. And so they will receive it with that. And I think that's what you're saying. And so there's ways in which if we know we're struggling, we can pause and give ourselves what we need to get to a place where then we can start again, you know?
Hmm.
And knowing that the impact, what you're saying, that end user result, like the impact
Hmm. Right.
going to be that person experiencing that love and joy that you really so much are and that you want to be giving, but sometimes we have a day of self-judgment, and that's okay too.
Yes, and it's even helpful. I think that that joy piece is even helpful in the deep listening work that I do. Because if I am, and I can notice it every so often in a conversation with someone, that kind of the moments where, and I think a lot of people that do this type of work can experience this, realizing that, oh my goodness, I'm looking for the question. What is the question I'm going to ask this person that is going to help them again? Um, and when I can let go of that and just direct compassion again, get out of the place of self judgment, and I'm just listening, the questions happen. I've said in the past, my forte is in the questions. Um, and maybe it's in the listening as well. But a lot of times, to get to our own space of knowing, it can just be one question that shifts the entire thing. And when again, when I'm in that space of just being able to be open, let the conversation just happen, I am fully listening to that person,
Yes.
then that natural progression happens. When I get into the space of self-judgment and, oh my gosh, am I asking the right thing, am I doing the right thing, it's not going to happen the way that it needs to. It's just
Right.
not.
Yeah, you're not fully in that space with them when you're doing that. You're kind of halfway in, halfway out, because part of you is thinking about yourself and what you're going to ask or whatever you need to be doing. So it's almost like when you let go of that and you just get curious and present, you're both feet in. You're all in there with that person. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. So what would you like to share, first of all, that you're up to in the world? How can people experience more of you and what you bring to the world? And you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have a website that is my name. It's NicholeMcVeigh.com. That's probably the easiest place to find me. Um, I'm kind of a mix of things at the moment. I do offer human design readings. And in fact, human design really infuses into deep listening work. Um, so, deep listening work is a mix of that, but then also those are healing journeys. And some are just, conversations here and there, but some are actual journeys, because it does take time to heal from different things. I almost see, not almost, I see healing personally as lifelong. And there's very much an ebb and a flow. Sometimes I'm doing more of the personal work of healing, and then sometimes I'm integrating. Um, so that piece. And then, of course, I cook for retreats, which has been interesting over the last year and a half. I used to host long tables as well, as you know, and those have been put on hold. But everything that I do seems to have this kind of food and conversation component. I have noticed that. Um, and I guess I'll point out that a lot of the deep listening work tends to be around transition for people, especially people who identify as women. But there's a lot of the transition work, and healing from past abuse. I know trauma has kind of become a big word right now, but there is work to be done around that, and there is healing to be done around that for people. So that's a lot of the work that I do now. Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, the website is an easy way to find me.
Yeah, and I'll list all of that in the email that this goes out into. I'll put your website and all those things. And yeah, I mean, uh, as far as retreats go, last year was kind of a an interesting year.
Kind of a wash. That's okay.
But that's okay. Yeah, other things happened and are happening and are still happening. And um, so yeah, and I'm going to be sharing more about you throughout the next few weeks as we get closer to the retreat. And I'm so excited to have you there. So
Oh,
the last thing is, if there's a wish or prayer for the women listening, what would you like to share with them today?
so mine I guess is a little bit of a double. One is that I personally really appreciate my own ritual around making drinks, especially hot drinks. I have tea right now. Um, and when I think about my ritual around that, it's not just what I'm holding right now, my end product. What it is selecting the tea. If it's coffee, it's selecting the coffee. Um, it's selecting the mug. This one was handmade for me by a friend of mine, Caitlin Savage. She makes all kinds of pottery. And I asked her to make one for me that reminded me of the ocean. So it's such, for me, it's such a ritual. It's selecting the mug, it's selecting the tea, making sure that the tea or the coffee is fair trade, and that people are treated well and children are not picking my tea. And people have safe working and living conditions. There's just so much around that. I want what I'm putting into my body to not be connected to slave labor. So that's a big piece for me, is being intentional around every piece of it. But putting the water on, hearing it boil, even hearing it come to the boil, pouring it over the tea, and just the smell, the steam, drinking it, the gratefulness around the cup. If I make coffee, I don't have a coffee maker. I make it in a Chemex or a French press or an AeroPress. And even just the act of pouring the water over the grounds or pushing the plunger down in the press or the AeroPress, that in itself is a meditation. It's an invitation to me to experience that, just that on its own. So you can probably tell it's very much a ritual for me, and even cooking is a form of meditation. So that there's that piece. I'm going to read a little quote that I have. It actually came from an Afar magazine. And I suppose this would be a form of a wish. I do really feel this in my body, and sometimes I get a little emotional. But it says, and two words are in a language that's not mine, so I hope I'm saying them properly. But it says, and you say thank you in their language and in yours. Gule, gule, they say, go laughing. And you do. Because you were never really stuck. And you were always really home. We have our answers. We have what we need. We're home. And I know that sometimes for people who have experienced trauma in their past, the body doesn't always feel like home, but we are. And the more that we can, the more that I take this in and the more that I live it, the more home I feel. And I guess maybe that's my wish for people, to feel home here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I feel like in this we're walking each other home. We're walking
Yes.
each other home by sharing in this conversation, by sharing with the listeners. We're not alone, and we all can feel like we're not home in our bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's so important to talk about it and to share, because then we can kind of let some of that out, some of that shame, some of that trauma. Thank you,
Right.
Nichole. Thank you. And I just want to speak to also the ritual of the tea. I I think what you repeated, and even in sharing that ritual, was the energy from which it comes is how the energy in which it will impact. Because just like we talked about, if I'm in the energy of self judgment and I'm cooking the meal, it's going to land differently.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know where my tea is sourced and it's not from a child labor, it energetically is going to land in my cup differently.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
thank you for bringing that forward, because I know that in this busy life, we don't always think about that. And I think it's so important to think about it. And I know that's one of the reasons why we connect, is because there's something so magical and beautiful about living an intentional life.
Mm-hmm.
And to have someone mirror back for us that that is possible for anyone. Anyone can do that. And the magic, and when I think of magic, I think of just the extraness, the beauty of something, and how we can feel that when we're intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see that in you, in everything that you do. Um, so thank you so much. I adore you. I love you. Thank you for being here with us and for sharing your joy experience. It's going to be so powerful for those that hear it and experience it, and experience all the your gifts you're bringing in October to the retreat. So
Well, I have said that for me, you glow when you teach, and you're so in your sweet spot, it seems. And I love seeing you work with women. I'm still wiping away tears, but I love seeing you work with women. I love seeing you in your own joy. So it's been a pleasure to get to know you, but I think you know that already. So
we are each other's gift for today, and every time we're together, it's a gift. So, mwah. Thank you for
thank you.
joining me. I'll see you soon.
Bye.